What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and Thor Love and Thunder is right around the corner. We're a little over 2 weeks away, but I see it this Thursday at the world premiere, so look out for my video on Friday, because I'll be posting a reaction to the movie on Friday, spoiler free. But in the meantime, we have new footage, new posters, new promotional images, and some new plot details for Thor Love and Thunder revealed in some interviews, some magazine articles, and of course in some footage that we've gotten recently. And we have some of the actors who have come out and spoken up about a few tiny details about the movie as well, like Tessa Thompson and Christian Bale. So a lot to break down today for Thor Love and Thunder. Let's get into it. And of course, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news. Now, first things first, apparently we have the final runtime coming from the Twitter account and insider Big Screen Leaks. I personally know them and know they have a great track record when it comes to these inside scoops, and they say that Thor Love and Thunder's final runtime is 1 hour, 58 minutes, and 34 seconds, making this the shortest MCU movie in a very long time. But I'm not worried about this. Thor Ragnarok sits as one of my top 5 favorite MCU movies of all time, and it's only 2 hours and 10 minutes long. And the movie was amazing. It was funny. It was also serious at the same time. It had a lot of character development. It redefined who Thor was in the MCU. And for Thor Love and Thunder, it's the same exact people. It's still Chris Hemsworth, Taika Waititi. Taika also helped write the script, of course, as well. We have Jane Foster's The Mighty Thor coming in, and they're introducing different types of gods to the MCU. The runtime doesn't really bother me at all. I have full faith in this movie. I may be a little biased because Thor is my favorite Marvel character, but I do have full trust in Kevin Feige, Taika Waititi, and Chris Hemsworth. Now, some plot details that have been revealed to us recently about Thor Love and Thunder through magazine articles and through interviews is that this movie is going to be about Thor trying to find himself. It is going to be just like Thor Ragnarok in a way, but this movie is also going to be sort of a detective film, which is very interesting, but it makes sense based off of some of the footage that we saw and some of the plot that we already know. Gorr the God Butcher, of course, is the main villain, played by Christian Bale, and he's going to be going across the universe killing a bunch of different gods. And what's going to happen is that Thor is going to notice that across the universe, insanely strong and powerful gods are going to be dying. In the trailers, we actually see him and Korg come across Falagar the Behemoth, that giant beast that is dead in the snow. This is actually a god and is actually a friend of Thor's in the comics and is an insanely powerful god. So this right here is going to tell Thor that someone is going around killing gods, and this person is incredibly powerful. And of course, Gorr the God Butcher has the all-black Necro Sword, which is basically a sword that is a symbiote made by Null, who created the symbiotes. But sadly, I don't think we're gonna get any Venom connections in this film. But Thor and Korg realize this, so they start to do some detective work and try to hunt down Gorr. Now, when this happens, I'm assuming they're actually with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And when Thor's with the Guardians, we know that he goes through a bunch of different phases. He goes from being the warrior that we saw at the end of Avengers Endgame to somebody who wants peace and doesn't want to fight anymore, then to somebody who actually wants to defend Asgard again. And we have this really cool new scene of Thor walking through fire with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And if you notice, this is still Bro Thor. He still has the beard. It looks like he still has somewhat of a belly, although he may have gotten in shape at this point, at least halfway. But this is a different Thor than we've seen be with the Guardians in the trailers. The Thor that we've seen with the Guardians so far is all about peace. So Thor is definitely going to go through a phase where he is fighting with the Guardians, becoming a Guardian of the Galaxy and becoming a Ravager, because of course we've seen him in the Ravager clothes. Then I'm assuming something happens on a planet with a certain type of people, maybe it's the blue species that we've seen, and Thor decides that it's time for him to put down the hammer and stop fighting. He's been fighting for over 1500 years and kind of discover who he truly is. Then from there, I'm assuming, based off of what we know, he finds the dead gods, decides to go back to Asgard, in which Asgard is getting attacked, and that's where Jane Foster's The Mighty Thor shows up. Now, speaking of the all-black Necro Sword and the symbiotes, we have seen these weird, kind of almost gooey, fluid-like black monsters in a few of the trailers now, and we actually have a new scene here of Gorr and Thor on what looks to be some type of moon or maybe some type of negative planet. But Thor says this ends here and now, and Gorr looks at him, and then it shows Thor, and if you look behind Thor, we can see some type of monsters in the background, and they look really, really big and pretty intense. So I'm assuming that Gorr has used the Necro Sword and the powers that come with it to create these creatures. I'm kind of thinking that since Marvel Studios doesn't own the rights to use Null and the symbiotes, Gorr the God Butcher in this film is probably going to be a combination of Gorr and Null, so he's most likely responsible for creating these creatures that are attacking Asgard. Now, when Thor gets back to New Asgard and helps defend them from these creatures, Natalie Portman's the Mighty Thor shows up, of course taking our Thor by big surprise here as she's able to wield Mjolnir now. He then goes to what looks to be some type of a town hall. We've seen a scene where Valkyrie is here talking to other political figures, but in this new shot, Thor is there giving a speech to what looks to be a bunch of Asgardians. So I'm assuming that this is on Asgard somewhere since he's given the speech to them, and he's trying to get them to unite and not be afraid of Gorr the God Butcher. And as Korg and Thor talk, Miek is there writing everything down that they say. If you take a look at the whiteboard that Miek is writing on, it is literally word for word what Korg and Thor have said. And Miek even drew a little picture of Mjolnir on it. He drew the old Asgard where everybody came from and some stars and some lightning. Also in this new footage, we see a very interesting structure in the sky, which I'm actually assuming is Olympus. If you take a look at it, it's all gold like Olympus is. It's floating in the sky, perhaps someplace over Earth, but is shielded so you can't see it. I'm assuming that it does exist in another realm, but is pretty close to Earth, because in Greek mythology, the gods interact with the earthly humans a lot. And if you take a look at the middle of this structure, it does look like the place where Thor, Jane Foster, Korg, and the rest of the crew are walking through in previous trailers. Remember, Olympus in the MCU is going to kind of be like a city in the sky, which is exactly what this looks like. We can also see Thor's goats pulling a chariot with them as they leave, and we can also see the Bifrost. I'm assuming that Thor, Jane Foster, and everybody else is inside this chariot, and they're using the Bifrost to go explore different parts of the universe to try and find Gorr, or at least go back to New Asgard. We then have another new scene of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Drax is yelling. He's yelling as he comes out of the water. He seems to be cutting some vines off of a creature off of him. We see Nebula in the background on the left, we see Rocket Raccoon in the background on the right, and we see Kraglin on the left as well, and it looks like he has something stuck in his nose and on the back of his head. Maybe he was attacked somehow in this scene. It does look like they're under attack, and perhaps something got him right in the nose. He does seem to be screaming, and it might be from the pain, unfortunately. Now, I'm not assuming any Guardians are going to die in this, of course. That's all going to be left for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but I am really excited to see Thor interact with the Guardians even more. Now, the last scene I want to talk about seems like it's going to be a pretty important scene. It's of Thor, and he seems to be in the same hall that we saw Jane Foster's Thor in, the one that has the statues of all of the cosmic entities. We've only seen Jane Foster in this hall before, but as we see here, Thor is here, and in the background is the Watcher, and right behind him we know is the Living Tribunal. However, what really caught my eye is that to his right, there seems to be another column where there would be another statue. And we know that on the left side are other cosmic entities as well. So this seems to be a big chamber or hall dedicated to gods, and these cosmic entities might be considered gods as well, because it looks like some of them are destroyed. In this scene on Thor's right, that column seems to be in rubble. It looks a little destroyed, and I'm assuming at one point in time Gorr the God Butcher went there and destroyed the faces of some of the gods that he's killed. This might be how Gorr the God Butcher is kind of keeping tabs on all of the gods. Every time he kills a god, he goes to this chamber and he blows up a statue of them. And this could be why Thor is really concerned in this shot. He sees that a bunch of these statues have been blown up, and this is going to make him realize that Gorr is an even bigger threat than he thought. So Thor Love and Thunder looks like it's going to be a really big movie. Looks like we're going to get introduced to a bunch of different gods and possibly even talk about the cosmic entities. So let me know your best predictions about Thor Love and Thunder in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. And for live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.